Episode 27, and this week we have a recap of the Cardano Summit 2021. Hey, and welcome to the Learn Cardano podcast, the podcast where we break down all the ins and outs of Cardano so that you know exactly what's going on in the Cardano community. There is so much happening, and if you're living under a rock, you may probably have not noticed that the Cardano Summit happened last weekend, and it was huge, absolutely huge. We have a massive news roundup of a lot of things that came out of that particular summit, as well as a couple of cool little things that have happened in the Brisbane one here, where we held our local little Cardano Summit meetup, and a whole bunch of other news items and stories that came out in the week following the Cardano Summit. So other little projects released a few things, and I'll be going through all that in this episode in a big news announcement update. All right, let's get into this. Right, so a lot has happened at the Cardano Summit. It was absolutely massive. 2 days of packed information, news updates, and announcements from all sorts of projects and collaborations that IOG, Cardano Foundation, have been working on in the background and haven't been able to release it, or been withholding it until this big summit to release it all in one big go. And wow, there was a lot there, and there were so many partnerships and whatnot that I could barely keep up, and it took me a whole week to catch up on some of these things just to work out what was happening in the community. I know a lot of people that were watching it live managed to take it all in, but running a conference, running a little meetup, trying to organize that thing last week in Brisbane did take a lot of time, and I think it actually took a bit of a toll on me in terms of organizing it, probably almost on the point of burnout. But that's okay. I'm still here, and we can keep going. So a couple of things to probably mention about the summit is, first off, the virtual world, which was absolutely amazing. It's probably not to the detail of some of the 3D games that you're probably used to, but the fact that this was just running in a browser then overlaid a lot of the presentations that came out from the summit in it was a really cool and unique experience that I hadn't seen anywhere before. I've been to a lot of virtual summits where they tried to do a very realistic conference kind of feel. So you'd go into particular rooms, you'll see the presentations, and it'll be just basically browser-based. So you see a window video playing on the screen with comments down the side, whereas this was more of an immersive experience where you played that little avatar, that little character within the game, wandered around the world, and you collected NFTs or collected goals to have potentially earn these NFTs in the virtual world as well. So it was really interesting. So it made it a little bit more interactive. You could talk to people as well. And there were some pretty hilarious images that came out, which I will put on the show notes so you can check them out and see what I'm actually talking about. Now, besides the actual virtual world itself, that's all gone now. You won't be able to see it. So if you missed that experience, it's not online anymore, but you can go to summit.cardano.org and check out all of the videos that came out from the summit and see exactly what all of these presentations were. You could also find it on the IOG YouTube channel, and if you missed anything, you can find it all there. So let's now have a look at some of these partnerships that Cardano has put together with various companies around the world. The first one here is with VeriTree, and VeriTree is a land restoration and pre-tree planting verification company that records and secures its records on the blockchain, and now with Cardano. Now, the interesting thing about this partnership is that they're trying now to do a global Cardano Impact Challenge that invites the community members to make a donation to VeriTree in ADA payments. And for this, for every 15 ADA pledged to the campaign, the donor would receive 15 VeriTree tokens, sorry. And this is redeemable for a tree planting certificate with the actual details of the tree planted in 2022. So it'll be planted next year. So the idea behind this is to not only restore this forest area, but to also make the Cardano blockchain completely carbon neutral. So a lot of the pools that are in the ecosystem at the moment are run on eco-friendly infrastructure. So our stake pool, for example, runs on about 90% renewable energies, which is really cool. And this initiative ensures that the entire Cardano blockchain is offset with 1 million trees and is completely carbon neutral for the next 5 years. That is amazing. So with all this news in the blockchain sphere, where Bitcoin is using the same amount of energy, almost the same amount of energy as Washington State or as the country of Malaysia, it's really cool to see that Cardano is doing the exact opposite and making their entire blockchain carbon neutral for the next 5 years. That's amazing, and that's really cool. So I encourage anyone that's got a little bit of spare ADA to donate to this particular campaign and make this a reality. So in checking this over the week, I saw it slowly climb up. I think it's at about 25% now of the goal. So it's slowly getting there. It will take a little bit of time, but I encourage anyone that's listening to this podcast episode, if they do have the spare ADA, to plant a tree. Donate to the Very Tree Global Impact Challenge, and I'll put the links to that in the show notes for this podcast episode. My next big announcement that came out of the summit is the partnership with Cody. Well, actually, the partnership with Cody and Cardano had already existed, but they had announced that Cody would deliver the JED stablecoin. So JED, which I haven't spoken about on this podcast episode before, is the algorithmic stablecoin that Cardano had done the research behind and is pushing out to the ecosystem and doing it via Cody. So Cody will release the crypto-backed algorithmic stablecoin that acts as an anonymous bank developed by IOG and totally issued by Cody. So this is an amazing little project. Well, it's not little, it's quite big. But Cody is essentially an on-road, off-road ramp for fiat currencies around the world. If you have a look at their website, they currently offer a few particular products. First off is Cody Pay. So this is cryptocurrency payment where they can easily convert the cryptocurrency to a fiat currency. So that way businesses can pay their bills by converting it directly at that point in time. So they may convert all of it, they may convert part of it, but Cody Pay is that initial off-ramp for cryptocurrency users so they can pay with cryptocurrency and the business can accept it and convert it into fiat currency to make life easier for them. So that's one of the products that they provide, but they also provide payment networks to a lot of banks and institutions, and now the new stablecoin, as well as a loyalty network and their remittance technology. The remittance technology is those payments between banks to make those payments faster. So they're providing a lot of this institutional backbone and infrastructure that already exists, and now they're just replacing it, or essentially replacing it and digitalizing it using blockchain technology. So that's what Cody is all about. They're doing an absolutely amazing thing, and I think they're a perfect partner to initialize and set forth the stablecoin, the JED stablecoin as well. I don't know if it's going to be called JED. It's a bit of a strange name. I don't know what it will be called. Maybe it will be just called JED. Maybe the name will stick. We will see. But Cody will be the providers of that particular stablecoin, and it will be really cool to come into play and see how that all works. Now, in the week following the summit, Cody had also released their credit debit card. So that's a really cool thing as well. I haven't looked deeply into this, but it looks like you'd be able to spend your cryptocurrency or fiat currency that is in your Cody wallet and be able to transact and interact with it directly there as well. So I have something similar that I use with crypto.com with their debit card as well. And that one, essentially, you load up with fiat currency or you sell off your cryptocurrency to fulfill and load up your debit card. And then you can spend that and you earn CRO tokens as a reward token for it. So it's a pretty cool little nifty card to have. It's very useful here in Australia. It's one of the very few cryptocurrency cards that allow you to do things like that. And it looks like Cody is going to follow in that respect and provide a lot of countries around the world with this particular service. So that's pretty cool. The next partnership I'd like to talk about is their partnership with esports giant Rival. So this partnership is looking at creating an NFT marketplace for the esports industry, and particularly around the Rival brand. Now, this is really cool in that a lot of projects in the Cardano ecosystem are looking into this already. So I did a interview with Novelia, who are unfortunately no longer actively developing it, but had released a lot of code for it, and also PlayerMint, who are working on a play-to-earn system and working in NFTs and their cryptocurrency token into it as well. So there's a lot of overlap here with some of these projects, and it's pretty cool to see that Cardano is partnering up with one of the biggest esports brands in the world to create this NFT marketplace and allow anyone that is playing within their ecosystem to buy, trade, sell their NFTs within their marketplace. So that's pretty cool. That's a really nice partnership, and I would love to see that metaverse, the NFT metaverse, evolve and see where it goes. I don't know exactly where it will go, but it's really cool to see that it's starting to happen. The next one that I'd like to point out, and this is pretty cool, and this touches the finances of my own development team. So I have a development team in the Philippines, and one of the banks there, the Union Bank, or their funky cool arm, they call it UBX. So it's a Union Bank to the power of X. When I was explaining it to my dev team, they looked it up and went, oh yeah, I know that. Union Bank to the power of 10 or X, whatever it's supposed to be. So that's their cool brand. But what they're doing is they are creating the first Cardano public stake pool that is run by a regulated institution. So this is essentially a look into the regulated marketplace, looking into how Cardano is working in terms of its returns on stake, return on ADA, and incorporating into a return for their customers. So their customers could be depositing their Filipino peso into their bank accounts. They'll be converted automatically at that point in time into ADA and being staked directly into their stake pool and then given interest based off that. I don't know what it might be exactly or what they're planning to offer their customers around this particular product or solution, but it's pretty cool that they're looking into that, they're playing around with it, and they're getting into that space. I did look into their stake pool as well, and they're currently at 62,000 ADA that is live staked at the moment with about 20 delegates. So it's still got a long way to go, still got a long way to get up to a point where they're minting and producing blocks every single epoch. But it is the very first initial step that they need to take to be able to do this. So it's interesting to see. I can see that their epoch by epoch growth is starting to happen now. And I'm pretty sure the actual bank itself would be placing some of their funds into the stake pool so that they can actually start minting blocks and getting a return on their investment as well. Their margin fee is at 5%. Their fixed cost fee is at the 340, which is the stable amount, which is the regular amount that you should be able to see. And their pledge is at 0 ADA, which is interesting. So I know you can still mint blocks with a 0 pledge, but I guess this is essentially, or might be, a private pool where they'll be working their own way of producing rewards that way. So they may not need the pledge there, but they may need a huge amount of stake. So that might be their angle. But they do have a website up at cardano-staking-pool.cms.ubx.ph, where you can find out a little bit more about their particular stake pool and how they are getting involved into the Cardano ecosystem. So it's pretty cool to see that UBX Philippines Corporation is getting into Cardano and staking. Now, the next partnership I'd like to talk about is with Straits Brands. So Straits Brands is an Australian brand that is in Tasmania, across the Tasman Strait, hence the name Straits Brands. And they're looking at using Cardano for their track and trace capabilities. And it might be one of Emergo's products that they're looking at, not sure exactly. But they're looking at using Cardano to do the entire supply chain tracking process for their particular product. So from the point of harvest and collecting the produce that is required for this liqueur, these spirits, they'll be able to see where it was harvested, when it was harvested, when it was delivered, where it was delivered to, when it was manufactured, when it was bottled, and when it was shipped around the world. So you can see that entire supply chain process and work out where something might have gone missing, where a particular product has gone foul and has broken its seals, maybe pallets were broken, something like that. You'll be able to see that entire process and work out where your issues are so you can improve on efficiencies and fix things that aren't working correctly. So it's a really cool efficiency in the supply chain model where they can use blockchain technology to track and trace and find out exactly what's going on within that entire process so things can be fixed as quickly as possible. Now, at the Brisbane Cardano Summit meetup, I said that Australia was one of the countries that was very underrepresented in the entire Cardano ecosystem. And I take that back. The fact that one of the brands that was used for this track and trace capability, the whole supply chain solution, was an Australian company. That was probably strategic as well. So I take back all of those comments about what I said about Australia being underrepresented in the Cardano community. It is clearly now on the highlight of one of the partnerships that is happening with Cardano and a supply chain company. Right. So how many more have I got on my list here? Oh, whoa. Okay, it keeps on going. This might be a long podcast episode. But the next one here is with a company called Dish. It's a Fortune 250 company. I've never heard of it before. It's one of those big companies that you don't hear about, but is incorporated into so many people's lives. And this is a communications company, a satellite and communications wireless service provider based in the United States that provides communications to millions of users in the States. Now, Dish is looking to integrate the Cardano blockchain to reinvent the telecom business, as Charles Hoskinson said. So Cardano will help Dish provide 8 million digital identities to its customers. The integration of Cardano's blockchain with Dish will help the company address the fragmented digital identities market to make it better, more private, and more secure by putting everything on the blockchain where it becomes immutable to show ownership. And additionally, Dish will also leverage the partnership to develop a blockchain-based loyalty program for its customers, similar to those deployed by airlines. The use of blockchain can make and help Dish accelerate its loyalty program adoption to the levels that airlines have taken decades to reach. So this is really interesting. It may boost Dish even further and take it to a completely whole new level where a lot of users are jumping into the ecosystem there purely for the rewards, not only for their services in the TV and wireless services that they provide, but also the digital identity and the loyalty program that they will be providing. Now, this next partnership is one that seems to have caught everyone off guard. So not many people would have predicted that this one was coming. Now, this was a strategic collaboration with Chainlink Labs to build smart contracts for Cardano DeFi applications and provide real-time market data for developers building on Cardano. So this is data as in like oracles to provide the most accurate price for particular cryptocurrencies. So Chainlink will be providing database access to the decentralized Oracle network that offers tamper-proof and high-quality data to the blockchains. So this data could include things such as election results, sports statistics, or cryptocurrency price feeds. Now, the one that interests me here is the election result data. This type of thing where Cardano could tie in digital identities, digital voting system built on the blockchain, and having this Oracle data come in with the results could mean that a very high quality voting mechanism could be developed and designed and developed on Cardano. That's really cool. That's really amazing. I know in a lot of countries around the world, there are a lot of voting issues where fraud, where, I don't know, maybe some president says that there is a lot of fraud in the voting system and votes have been doctored in the process. But, something like this would alleviate that kind of issue, make sure that every single person that is voting has a digital identity, has been verified, is all stored in the blockchain, and all that data is coming in accurately. That would be amazing. That would solve a lot of issues and really promote and show democracy in many, many countries where that level of transparency is impossible. We don't see those election results. We don't see all these people and all these votes coming in. We're purely relying on what is coming in and being fed to us in the media. So this would be really interesting if this is the initial plays, the initial steps that are needed to actually get to those points. I know that there is a lot of partnerships, a lot of meetings that happen between Charles himself and the governor of Wyoming. So it's really interesting to see that come into play and see what actually is happening there. If there is something that's happening there in the local government, I'm not sure. Maybe there is. We just have to wait and see. Now, some news that came out a little bit before the conference was this thing called the Plutus App Store. Was it the Plutus App Store? Or the Cardano's Decentralized App Store, where Plutus applications would be verified, audited before they're allowed to be on this particular DApp store. So this will give users that high level of assurance and certainty that what they're interacting with on the DApp store is something that Cardano IOG have given the thumbs up to, essentially. They've looked at the code, they've looked at the team, they've looked at the smart contracts and made sure everything is as secure as possible, and then list it on the DApp store so that users can find it, discover it, see what's going on in the Cardano ecosystem, and I guess feel safe to actually interact with a lot of these things. So this is something I don't think exists anywhere else in any other blockchain community. So this is a really cool step forward. It's essentially what Apple have done with their app ecosystem, where, if you're downloading an app from the Apple App Store, it has gone through that vetting process and it should be 99% safe and secure for you to interact with, buy in-game purchases, etc., etc. So whatever you're doing with those apps that you download from the App Store have been given the thumbs up by Apple. So this is essentially the same thing where you've been given the thumbs up by Cardano or IOG so that you can interact with this particular app that you've found. So that's really cool. It really tries to make the user experience as safe as possible. And I think that's a really big step in the right direction. Something else that was teased just before the Cardano Summit was the scaling possibilities, the scaling solutions for Cardano as well. So this was the form of Hydra. So a couple of videos, a couple of articles were put out just before the summit to talk about this particular scaling solution. If you haven't seen it before, I'll put the links to Hydra and what it's all about in the show notes so that you can have a better understanding of how Cardano is going to scale up. Essentially, each and every stateful operator would run this particular software, this particular level 2 scaling solution, so that Cardano can process many more transactions at the same time. And this essentially will take Cardano up to over 2 million transactions per second, which is more than enough for the particular type of transactions that's happening on Cardano at the moment. So this will allow for that massive amount of scaling and growth in the Cardano ecosystem. Now, another technical partnership that came out of this summit is the Utxo Alliance. So there are various blockchains that use the unspent transaction output method of accounting. There are various blockchains that use it. Bitcoin was the first. Cardano came up with the extended UTX model, and also Ergo used this particular model as well. And I'm pretty sure there's other blockchains that use it too. But essentially, what they have formed is a Utxo Alliance where they'll share various bits of research and information about how they're using a particular model so that they can evolve the particular ecosystem that uses that particular accounting model so that it can grow and prosper further. The way I see this is that Cardano uses the UTX model and has finally developed smart contracts around it, and engineers are developing their particular solutions for it. Now, Bitcoin doesn't have smart contracts and uses this UTXO model. And the solutions that are built on a layer 2 of Bitcoin could possibly use some of the engineering and knowledge that is developed on Cardano for Bitcoin itself, so that maybe one day Bitcoin can have smart contracts on a layer 2 solution using a lot of the things that Cardano has developed currently. So that's would be amazing. So we're always looking for this interoperability between particular blockchains. So we're going to interoperate and connect with Ethereum and connect with Bitcoin one day. And this is one of those steps to make that happen. So sharing the knowledge, sharing that will to share on the alliance level is a really cool thing to see and happen, so that one day we may eventually see smart contracts on Bitcoin. Now, on a side note, something that is completely off topic from the summit, Twitter has started to roll out its tipping service. So you can tip someone with Bitcoin, and they're using the Lightning Network. So they've adopted Lightning Network. Lightning is a layer 2 solution that allows you to transfer Bitcoin from one person to another via Twitter now, and you won't be paying the huge fees that you see. So they bundle up all the transactions together on that layer 2 solution and do it all in one transfer from node to node. So it makes it a little bit quicker, a little bit faster. I don't know about security, but essentially it takes out all of those transaction fees and bundles them all into one big transaction fee, so that you don't need to pay for each and every individual transaction, especially if you're paying, $1 tip or something like that, and you're using Satoshis to pay someone. You don't want to be paying someone 100 Satoshis when you're giving them a 5 Satoshi tip. So Satoshis are the increments of Bitcoin, so the small decimal places of Bitcoin, a fraction of Bitcoin. So that's really cool. That's something that Twitter has rolled out, and maybe we'll see some other things come out into play later on in the year. But it's a really cool feature to actually see on Twitter. If you look at some of the prominent Bitcoin enthusiasts on Twitter, you'll be able to see this little tipping function, and now you can load up a particular wallet that will support it, and you can tip someone directly on Twitter. All right, so probably the last few announcements that are bundled together in one big one is some of the investment that Cardano is doing in particular parts of the world. Now, the first off is Emergo's $100 million worth of funding and investment for Cardano development. So this means that Emergo is injecting in $100 million into furthering the development for Cardano. So that is a huge amount of money. I know they have quite a few stake pools and a lot of ADA sitting in the background there, and they're saving it away, obviously, to do this so that they can develop the Cardano ecosystem further, which is absolutely amazing. One of the other investment launchpads that is happening is the African-based fund that IOG is creating, and they're investing $6 million to finance innovation in blockchain projects in Africa. So if you're an African project that is looking at developing something and using Cardano, you could probably tap into some of this funding to make it happen. So that is pretty cool. So previously in episode 20, I did an interview with Antonia from the Way Collective, and she's working out of Uganda there, and she'll be able to tap into this particular fund to develop her blockchain solution and essentially take it to the next level. Really combine that decentralized manufacturing that's happening there and in many countries in Africa, for that fact, and really promote and produce really cool ethical fashion and push it out to the rest of the world. Now, they do have a catalyst proposal in Fund 6 that is almost up for voting, just around the corner. So please make sure you check out their project and give them a vote. If you've registered your wallet, you can get in there and do your voting. It's coming up real soon. And since I'm talking about Project Catalyst, I should probably point out the date. I think the date for voting actually opens up on the 7th of October. So that is literally right after this podcast episode releases. So you'll be able to jump on and start voting for your favorite project. Now, if you haven't registered for Project Catalyst this round, you don't have to worry if you managed to vote in previous rounds. So if you voted in round 4 and round 5, you can reuse that QR code, hopefully you've saved it, and your PIN to unlock it on the Project Catalyst voting app. So you can go to the App Store, reload up your QR code and your PIN, and your funds from your wallet that you're holding currently will be loaded up as voting power for Fund 6 in Project Catalyst. So fingers crossed you still have that. Fingers crossed you did vote for this round if you hadn't done it before, and you can get into that process and vote for your favorite projects that are building on Cardano at the moment. Now, you do need that minimum of 500 ADA in your wallet to be able to vote, and there is a registration or a voting fee of about 0.17 ADA. So hopefully you would have received a little bit of that from your rewards for staking, but the voting process will pay you for that as well. So I believe they give you about 1 ADA in return for this particular voting process. So you eventually get that. It gets paid out a little bit further down the track. Now, there are so many projects in Project Catalyst at the moment, and sometimes it's really hard to work out who or what project you want to vote for. But on the weekend previous, there was something called Ideasfest. And Ideasfest is a whole bunch of projects that were pitching their project overall on Zoom, and they are all currently being edited and published on the ADAOZ YouTube channel. So you'll be able to see all of the projects that have been submitted, or not all of the projects, but a lot of the projects that came into this particular run, this particular funding round, and have produced a little video pitch plus a Q&A session around their project as well. So you'll be able to see that really soon so that you have a better idea of what particular projects you may be wanting to vote for in this round of Project Catalyst. Now, we also do have a proposal that is being put through. I'm working on it with Professor Nick Nikiforakis in regards to the automated scam and phishing detection bot. So this bot will help detect all of these scams that are currently happening on YouTube or on various websites. So if you see these scams, this is what we're fighting against. Professor Nick's bot detects a lot of these and then initiates the takedown process. So all of these websites can be removed off the internet. So it's a really cool tool. It's a really cool project. I'm doing the API layer so that other third-party developers and third-party wallets can actually interact with the data that we're collecting from all of these scams. So when we detect a scam wallet that's being used by a particular scammer, we'll put it within our database and put some smarts around it so that anytime anyone is trying to send funds to that wallet, they will know it's a potential scam and hopefully put up enough red flags in front of them so that they would consider not sending their aid away and potentially losing it in that particular scam. So that's our project. There are many, many more projects that you can potentially vote on in Project Catalyst as well. So I highly recommend you checking them all out. If you want to learn more about Project Catalyst, you can listen to episode 3 of the podcast at cardano.com.au/EP027, and you can learn more about Project Catalyst and how that works as well. Now, the last big investment funding thing that's happening is the Decentralized Consortium Fund, so the DCF. I actually watched the presentation for this one here, but I didn't dive very deeply into it to work out exactly how they're doing it, who's doing it, and how much the funding is. But apparently this is quite a huge one as well, from what I understand. So there are all these funding mechanisms that are coming to Cardano. There's the African Innovation Fund for blockchain, the Emergo, 100 million, and DCF, which is apparently even bigger than that. And of course, Project Catalyst as well. So we've got these 4 arms of funding to try and develop the Cardano ecosystem. Well, not try, it will develop the Cardano ecosystem. Now, as this grows every single year and gets bigger and bigger, as investment funds do, we're going to see Project Catalyst in itself grow from its tiny 4 million, which is kind of big still, to maybe tens to hundreds of millions of dollars. And when it gets to that point, a lot of big startups are going to take notice and try and tap into this funding. So a lot of the startups that come out of Silicon Valley, for example, would require tens of millions of dollars to actually get funded and start their projects because of their teams of engineers, infrastructure, everything that they'll need. Legal, for example, lawyers, it costs you millions. But they need that level of funding to be able to actually do their projects. And as soon as Cardano, Project Catalyst in particular, gets to that level, it is going to attract these investors in, not these investors, these startups in to get that level of investment. So it's really interesting to see over the next couple of years, as the price of ADA grows, the treasury size of Cardano will grow and the type of projects that are coming into the ecosystem. So if you're listening to this podcast right now, you are early. Cardano is only going to grow more and more over the years, and the projects that are coming in will grow bigger and bigger. So as I said, you are still early. So I've covered a whole bunch of things here from the Cardano Summit. Some I didn't cover, but what was your favorite? Leave a comment in the show notes at cardano.com.au/EP027, and you'll be able to find the comments there. Tell me what I've missed. Tell me what you want to learn more about. Tell me what you want to hear. And let me know what your favorite announcement was. What surprised you? What was your favorite? I'd love to hear what you guys think. Now, the biggest thing that I took out of the entire summit and the Brisbane Cardano Summit meetup was the community. That is the biggest thing that I absolutely love from working in all of these ecosystems, all these economies that I've been working in, all these industries, I should say. When working in the Joomla space, the Joomla content management system for the many years that I did, and then also pivoting and working in the WordPress community, I found the people were the things that kept me coming back again and again. Working with some amazing, intelligent people, creating amazing projects and learning from them, and also contributing back to the community. They were some of the biggest factors, that they were the biggest factors of why I stuck with those communities. And I find it's pretty much the same thing with Cardano as well. It's amazing to have met and connected with all of these people at the Brisbane Cardano Summit meetup. And I was blessed to spend time with them. It was absolutely amazing. It was amazing to connect, amazing to hear all the stories and share a couple of beers with all these people. It's really cool to unwind, relax a little bit as well. I think I needed it. But what we've got now is a thriving community here in Brisbane. I've got all of these meetups organized over the next couple of months. We've got one coming up around the DeFi space in Brisbane. We've got one coming up in the Gold Coast. I just got to lock in the venue that will be talking about Project Catalyst. Then we're looking at some exchange talk next month not next month, in November, and then a Christmas party as well in early December. So we've got a lot planned for the rest of the year, which I'm pretty excited about. And hopefully the conditions here in Australia will ease up a little bit and people will be able to get out and about in some of the other states, and we can fire up some more events in the other states. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And hopefully, fingers crossed, things do ease up in the southern states, the New South Wales and Victoria as well. So we can actually get meetups happening in some of the biggest states in Australia. Now, I'm pretty sure there's all these huge events and these meetups happening around the world as well. If you are in one of these meetups, if you did go to one of these summit event meetups around the world, let me know. I'd share a couple of photos. I would love to hear and understand what your experience was like connecting with the Cardano community as well. Was it the same or similar to my own experience? Did you find yourself a little bit shy, or did it feel like you're connecting with family again? It's very interesting how people have engaged with the community, and I'd really like to know what your experience was as well. So leave a comment in the show notes or leave a comment on YouTube as well, and I'd love to hear what your experience was. So that's it for another episode of the Learn Cardano podcast. Now, if you love this content, please consider leaving a 5-star rating and review on the Apple Podcast Network. It really helps with the discoverability of this podcast. So please leave us that lovely 5-star rating review if we think we deserve it. I haven't received any other written reviews, but I have seen a lot of just 5-star ratings, just no reviews. But that's totally cool. If you don't feel like you want to write anything, that's totally fine. That lovely 5-star thing is more than appreciated. So that's it for me for another episode of the Learn Cardano podcast. And until next time, please make sure you keep your seed phrases safe and secure, and make sure you keep them backed up. All right, bye.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debating. IOHK, Emergo, we're not affiliated, not Cardano Foundation. We just gotta say it. A show that you can learn and it's for your entertainment. Yeah, you gotta check it. Don't wanna be missing that. You were tuned in to the Learn Cardano podcast. Yeah, giving insight. Ain't another show like this when it come to crypto. Invest at your own risk. Might not be for everyone, but who it is for, we keep giving you some info and plenty more. Hey, yeah, the Learn Cardano podcast. Hey, yeah, the Learn Cardano podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Keep it locked right here. Let's go.